Greetings. Welcome everyone. It's Chief Yuya, and you are listening to the Midday Affirmative on the platform. All right, and I want to thank you for, of course, coming through. Those of you who are here now, and those of you who are on your way to getting here. The usual. Thank you for riding through. I'm gonna get right into it and not waste too much time with niceties. You know, um, we're going to talk about judging today, judgment. And the reason being, I wanted to kind of build on this a little bit, just on the surface, just tickle the surface of the concept a little bit, is because a lot of times in our daily experiences with people, if we're living in a manner that is outside of the circumference or outside of the vision of what people see as quote unquote normal, they'll make a judgment, you know. And then sometimes we may look inside at another person and we may have something to say, whether it be constructive or destructive. Either one is fine. Sometimes you have to tear some things down, sometimes you have to build some things up. And with that, depending on who you're speaking to, a lot of times, in all honesty, if you're speaking to someone who identifies as a Christian, whenever they choose to do what it is that they want to do, the first thing they'll say is, Bible says, don't judge. Who are you to judge me? And that's a common saying that's often used. But there's so many different sayings that are used often to deflect away from what should be, and people have said them so much that they have become a part of a social Bible, if you will. Like if you say cleanliness is next to godliness, there are people who think that that's actually in the 66 books of the Bible somewhere, without understanding that no, that's just a phrase that was utilized. Or I shared one recently, was talking to the study group and I knew, and I said, I spoke about spare the rod, spoil the child, which is not in the Bible. That was actually a poem that was a joke, that was shared many years ago. And so, there are things sometimes that people sort of rely on and they lean back on, uh, not fully clear, or maybe not fully being aware that those things that they're leaning on are not necessarily a part of the doctrine that they say they stand on, right? And judgment is a big one because when you live in a time when people are so rebellious, of course, they come up with very quick ways to declare and to teach you away from their disobedience, and it's okay if it's encouragement though. So like if someone does a certain thing and I say, oh, you did such a beautiful job, and it's indisputable that what you did is perfect, and I'm of the opinion that it's esteemable, then it's okay to judge you. You're perfectly okay with that. You're perfectly comfortable with that. But as soon as I say, what you did needs to be looked at again, I can't necessarily decree it to be something that is not concerning. It could have been done different, could have been done better. Maybe it needs to be torn down. When I really look at it from a forensic, with a forensic eye, then now I'm told, oh, don't judge, or you being negative. And the reality is you need negativity and positivity to create and to move all things forward and to cultivate. There's always going to be a combination of light, dark, negative, positive, masculine, feminine, off, on, electric, magnetic. So, the judging thing is really, really tricky. And like I said, if you're one who kind of practices any sort of thinking that goes beyond the social norm, and beyond as in above or deeper, then you may find, like it says in Matthew 12:34, out of the abundance of the heart the mouth speaks. You may end up saying something that oh man, I'll let that slip. Maybe somebody's doing something that is maybe injurious to them, their spirit, their community, and you end up saying something because out of the abundance of the heart, and then they say, don't judge. Even though Matthew 12:33 says a tree is known by its fruits. So just based upon that, then I would be able to look at that tree and make a judgment, or the fruit rather, and make a judgment of what the tree is, you know? So many people will fall upon the sword, if you will, of Matthew 7:1. Judge not lest ye be judged, for what judgment you judge, you will be judged by. And with the measure, it will be measured back to you. And that doesn't necessarily says do not judge. It just says if you judge, you will be judged, and you will be judged with the same intensity that you're judged by, right? But people, out of convenience, will run away with that and say, well, that means, you can't judge me, without really understanding, also the key of, well, what is judgment, right? That's the critical piece right there. What is it to judge? Because if you look at the Strong's Concordance, right, the Strong's Concordance will tell you that one of the meanings to judge is to condemn. But that's incorrect. Just because it's in a book and someone has names like Strong, so it's got to be right. Or the Strong's Concordance is kind of like the standard when you're doing study, or the Vine's Concordance is the other one. Those are like standards, like, well, it's got to be right because it's here. No, not necessarily. You still have to break things down and look for things and understand things. Just because something's in the Bible doesn't mean it's correct. Not at all, because a lot of times there are things that we judge based on our current level of perception. We judge those things. We judge everything in the Bible that speaks from above to be a God. That's a very primitive understanding of what a deity is. You see, it's very similar to the cargo cults. I spoke about this a long time ago. I mentioned it. It's in an old video somewhere. You'd have to look it up and probably type my name in cargo cults. But essentially, you had these pilots during the war that they would land on certain remote islands to repair their ships, their planes, and unbeknownst to them, the natives would be watching them from the bushes. So they would repair their planes and fly off, or you had other ones who would leave supplies for natives. They would drop out of the sky, or certain things that would be left. But you had certain ones that, they would land, they would repair their planes, and they would fly off. And then what would happen, they would find that, directly right off after they leaving, the natives would take wood and coconut and grass, and they would make exact replicas of the planes. They would take wood and make things that look like two-way radios, or some, you may call them walkie-talkies, because they believed that these were instruments of the gods. So they would set up these altars to these really technological, implements, because a lot of times technology becomes deified. Technology becomes the idol. So there are things sometimes that you'll look at in the Bible, and it's really a reference to technology. Anytime you have anything with feathers in the Bible, it's talking about flight. But you don't know if it's a machine or if it's an individual. But of course, because we focus on the mythology of things, we'll say this entity can fly, this individual can fly, so therefore they must be a deity, they must be a god, and so that's a judgment that we may make, and it may not be accurate based on our misunderstandings of technology, but sometimes through our arrogance, we refuse to step away from what we consider to be God's spell, or I guess the gospel, as some will call it, right? So that judge not yet ye be judged, yet ye be judged, lest you be judged, excuse me. And lest means you might, by the way. Judge not, or you might be judged. Just like when Eve said, or Hawa said, if we eat of the fruit, lest we die, means we might die, which of course was her messing up the instructions, if you will. So yeah, it gets kind of deep, because you have different words that are used in New Testament and Old Testament for judge, and unfortunately, are all is judge. which becomes, of course, problematic because you're taking something that can have so many different meanings, so many different words, and because at the time maybe your language doesn't necessarily have the words to support everything that's being said, you just take everything and say, "Oh, I just judge." It's very similar to the use of the word love, right? There are so many things that could be said, so many different words that are utilized in scripture, and they just narrow it down to this very ambiguous word of love. Judge is very similar, right? So in the Greek, you have krino, which is typically the word that was used for judge in the Greek Testament, but it was only used like 3 times. That word judge, and krino means to sift, or to sort through, right? So in that concept of sifting, it could also mean to part, and ultimately it means to decide. And decide comes from decidir. Decidir means to bite or to chomp. So when I'm deciding something, I'm biting it. I'm separating it from this thing from that thing. That's a decision. That's why decisions are so difficult sometimes to make, because they split our consciousness. We're going one way and we decide, nope, I gotta let that go. I gotta bite it off. I gotta remove it from me. So judgment is similar in that it means, when you're using the word krinos, right? When you're using the word krino, it would mean to select or to value or to sift, like you would sift if you're looking for gold, and you have a sifting tray inside of a stream or a river, and you're sifting through all the stones in order to find the mineral that you're searching for. So that's judgment. So, and that's actually the word that was used in that scripture. So it didn't mean to condemn, like condemn not, lest you be condemned. It meant if you sift and look for value, you will be assessed with the same sort of sifting measure that you are using. Because to judge also means to seek justice, or to be accused, right? Not a problem. There's nothing wrong with that, But then if you go back to the Hebraic Testament, or what some of you may call the Old Testament, a lot of times the word that was used for judge represent legality or ruling. This is why you have the book of Judges, right? In the book of Judges, the judges at that time, in ancient times, they were rulers, like how we would see a king or whatever. Samson and Samuel, they were judges, meaning that they ruled, which is different than the krinos, meaning to sift or to shake, or to decide. It's something, it's nuance, I guess, on some levels, but obviously much different. So the concept, when you say something and somebody says, "You can't judge me, don't judge me," that's off. Because even if you read Ion 7:24, some of you may call it John 7:24, but Ion 7:24, stop judging by mere appearances, but instead judge correctly. So just even the concept of that is saying, it's similar to 1 Samuel 16:7. The Lord looks at the heart. The Lord doesn't look. People look at outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart, right? So what it's saying in that sense is that you can judge, and there's a proper way to judge, and there's a wrong way to judge. It's like the Keith Sweat song. There's a right and a wrong way to love somebody. So it's not to necessarily say that love itself is wrong or to love is wrong, but let me teach you how to do it in a way that is more fruitful and that's more effective. Because there are some people that will judge the outward appearance of something because they're following what we call the letter of the law. I've seen it so many times, especially in conscious circles, right? We may be somewhere and we're speaking or doing a lecture, and someone will show up who here's a great example. I remember I was at a drum circle once, and I was drumming, and I was with a lot of my brothers, with a lot of my elders, and these young bulls, they came through and they started dancing and stuff as we were drumming. They were playing around being goofy and dancing. And one of the elders was like, hold on, no, y'all can't do that here. And I didn't address the elder, but I addressed the young guys. And I said, yo, it's cool. Don't worry about it. I'll speak to him. Because you're judging outwardly, like, because what, they not dancing West African dance. They're here and they feel safe here, and they may be playing around, but they're not disrespecting anyone. They were in their own, because the drums are loud, so they were in their own space and they were dancing and everything. They were kind of close to us, but they weren't threatening anything like that. But the bottom line is, you're looking at the letter of the law and not looking at the spirit of the law. What spirit did these young men come with? Because after they finished dancing and playing around and cracking jokes or whatever, they weren't making fun of anyone, anything like that. These were young men you could speak to at that point. What's your name? Da, 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 da. Hey, we're here every Wednesday. Come on through. Y'all welcome to anytime you want. Matter of fact, hey, you want some water? We got cooler water over there. Boop de boop de boop. This is how you begin to build community, as opposed to judging outwardly, which is a very humanistic way of judging someone. It's like in 1 Corinthians 2:15, but he that is spiritual judges all things, yet he himself is judge of no man. And what that means, it doesn't necessarily mean that a person who claims to be a spiritual person is beyond reproof. It doesn't necessarily mean that. What it means is that, when someone is moving with a spiritual eye, with their first eye, with their pineal organ, they now are judging things through the help or the assistance of the Ruach HaKodesh, or the mother of wisdom, the great mother. So now they're using that ability and that eye to see things. But when it says, like, but yet he himself is judged of no man, it is saying that you can't use human judgment to now judge someone who's moving with spiritual action. Because they're now moving beyond the understanding of the material world. They're moving even beyond what you would consider to be belief. Like many of and I knew, I don't really encourage the use of belief, or the use of the word belief. People will say, like, especially a lot of Christians, they call themselves believers, and belief is in the Bible. But just because it's in the Bible doesn't mean it's correct, as we've taught many times. And when you're really teaching truth, you're not taking people away from the scriptures. You're bringing people deeper into the scriptures. But the scriptures doesn't necessarily mean what's in that book. You see, because there's many other books, that we don't get into. We don't get into the book of Enoch. We don't get in the book of Ezra as much as we actually should. There's other testaments that we haven't really explored at the level that we possibly could, So, and just in that concept itself, of being able to see the spirit and looking outside, some don't necessarily have that capacity, because they're still functioning from what they see outside, or belief. And the word belief itself comes from belie, so people, I know people have a lot of little slick kind of acronyms or ways that they describe what belief is or belief isn't, but that's actually where it comes from, right? And what belie means, what it means to belie, it means that your words do not, or your actions do not align with your words. So for instance, if you said you were going to do something and you do not do it, and somebody witnesses, they would say, this is old English, they would say, you have belied yourself. You have belied yourself, meaning that you have gone against what your word is. So if I believe something, or I belie something, in truth, I am accepting something regardless of what has been shown and proven. Or what has been shown and proven has been the opposite of what you have shown me. So now I have to kind of blind my eyes to what it is and believe it anyway. You see, it's similar to this. Let's look at belief for a second. The raising of Lazarus from the dead, right? This was one of the works that that we witnessed, or can't say witness, that we read about in the good book, and it's a great story. There's so much in that, when we read about Lazarus of Bethany. And the key about it is that to just accept that for what it is, or to accept that miracle for what it is. And that's in John, the 11th chapter. John 11, it really starts at 1, but the 11th chapter, where it talks about raising Lazarus, and that's like he raised him, 4 days after he had transitioned, or 4 days after they put him in a tomb. Let's put it that way, right? And of course, this is a mark and a sign of the crucifixion, which many of you call the crucifixion. So this is really a nod to Astarte, or Easter. But the point is, I'm saying, right, because it's not really so much about the story. When you translate the word Lazarus, you get as asaru. And in looking at as asaru, you realize that as asaru is actually the name of Osir, or Asar, or Osiris. So you're reading this story about somebody who was raised from the dead called Lazarus, but the story is newer than the story of Osiris. So your belief does what in that moment? Do you say, maybe this story is newer and the historians got it wrong, or whatever, or maybe you'll jump over to Babaluaye and you'll say, really Babaluaye rules all, so it's really about Babaluaye and he being the dead man that was resurrected. Or do you acknowledge that during the Babylonian captivity that the Israelites gathered stories from the Assyrians, and some of their stories made their way into scripture, just like the story of Genesis? Like when we look at the Enuma Elish and we realize that, okay, the story of Genesis with the serpent is similar but more condensed, we'll say, maybe a bit descriptive in some parts, but more condensed in the Enuma Elish, which is older. Is it possible that they took this when they created the Pentateuch, or those first 5 books, that they grabbed information from these ancient Sumerians or Babylonians, we'll say, right? But our belief will say, no, whatever's in these 66 books, that's the end of it, right? And that's belief, and that's not judgment, you see. But again, we were told that we should judge not by appearances, but judge by the Spirit, you see. But we skip right past that when it becomes inconvenient, whether we're dealing with people or whether we're dealing with the book, and sometimes it's difficult because of, again, what we end up having to face in terms of what people will say as a result, or the judgment. We're afraid, like you read Ephesians 5:11, and have no fellowship with the unfruitful works of darkness, but rather reprove them, right? So that alone is telling you, and notice it's not saying have no unfruitful works have no fellowship with the people who work in darkness, but it's saying have no fellowship with the unfruitful works of darkness. You see, so there are people in darkness, but then there are works of darkness, which would be the lies that you may see. Whether the lies exist on a governmental level, whether they're on a religious level, whether they're on a social level, the bottom line, these are the unfruitful works of darkness. Why are they unfruitful? Because they don't extend anywhere out from where they are. They have there's no profit in them. They don't bring forth fruit. And the only thing that they produce is more corruption. The only thing that they produce is more shame. The only thing that they produce is more fear. So don't fellowship with them. Don't even consent to them. Don't approve of them. Obviously don't commit to the same experiences or things that they're doing, But if you're someone who's judging and moving through the concepts of spirit, you should have no fellowship with that. You see, you should have no connection with that, but rather you should be reproving that. Meaning like you're denouncing it. I'm coming with the light, and I'm carrying the light of the divine world with me, and I'm carrying that divine law, and I won't fellowship with those things that exist within darkness. And again, that's a form of judgment that becomes very difficult for us to understand. And sometimes when we begin to speak to it, there's certain things that we're faced, but we were already told, if you judge, you will be judged. If you sift and look for the truth, people will test the truth in you. Big deal. If you're standing on it, what's the problem? When you read Titus 2:15, these things speak and exhort and rebuke with all authority, let no man despise thee. You see? So that within itself is a commandment. It's saying speak, exhort, teach these things. You see, declare these things. Don't be afraid to speak the truth, or to exhort means to encourage. So I'm encouraging those who are holding the truth, just like I'm saying now. Yeah, I know you may say some things that people disagree with, but if you're moving with the truth, I'm encouraging you to focus on the healing and the fruitful aspects of what bringing the truth is and does. Bringing news to others that are good, and not based on belief, but based on truth, based on science, but knowing how to correct or to rebuke those injurious aspects of the lie. You see, and you don't have to necessarily defend the truth, but you should always make clear the truth against false teachers, because false teachers are all over the place. And as we always say, feel free to raise your hand if you want to come in on the conversation. All right, I know you all act really shy a lot of times, and I'm not going to be sitting here asking you 5 million times to come in. I know everybody else does that, but I don't really care. If you come in, come in. If not, you want to sit and just listen, sit and listen, whatever. But so the thing is, but what you can do is share the segment. You can do that if you don't feel strong enough to come in and step into the arena. You definitely can share the segment. All right, Miss Iris, you're on. Miss Iris, you're on. Albert Cruz, you're on. Okay, you're in the space. Iris, I brought you in, but I don't know why I don't see you. But I did bring you in. Iris. Feel free to speak up, Albert Cruz. I see you there.
Hey, bless the love, Chief, bless the love, family. Yeah,
Give
man.
thanks.
Something when you were speaking just now, you were referring to the truth being tested, and I put my mind directly to a conversation that a dialogue rather that you had with us on our build during the Sabbath. When you were speaking about, when there's a change happening with somebody who you're pouring into, because their counterparts will start to actually address it in them, like they're now taking your shape, and they're now taking your philosophies, taking your points of views, because rather than being opposite to you, or being a reflection to you, rather, they're actually morphing into you. So, as you were speaking just now, I couldn't get those words out of my head. And, it's the same thing when we're pulling ourselves up to the Kether. I remember your teachings on that, the encouragement of it becomes uncomfortable because we're continually grabbing hold and we're continually lifting ourselves up. And, we start to disconnect from a lot of things of our former selves. And in most cases, those things are people, some of the blood relations that we had. And, even some of the relationships that we may have thought that were get more tangible in our life, we realize that we even outgrow them because they're not based on truth, they're based in the cases of feelings and so on. So that definitely was something that I definitely appreciated when you were speaking just now, and I put my mind into what you shared with us yesterday. Give thanks.
Absolutely, absolutely, brother. Give thanks for that. Sister Iris, it's all you. And I see Ema Sequoia. You just asked in the chat, is it right to judge, or were you? I don't know. Oh, you were sharing. Okay, I was wondering. I was like, wait a minute, that's what we've been talking about the whole time.
Oh, peace to all of you. Peace, Chifi. Yeah,
Peace, Iris, all the
I
way from
finally
Germany.
got it. Oh my God, this was hard work now.
It's well
But
worth it. I'm sure it will be worth it.
yeah, yeah, I was just came home from Kemet last week actually,
Beautiful.
and yes, it was a beautiful holiday, beautiful. And I realized on the beach, there was this tourists, of course, and the people who are selling things, and they both were judging each other. The tourists were judging the salesmen because, of course, they want to sell something, and always come and ask, "Do you want to buy? Do you want to buy?" And also, of course, the salesman judged the tourists for being tight people, don't want to spend money on
Right.
holiday. So I went to the tourists and I said, "Do you know how much these people own in a month?" And they said, "No." I said, "They get less than 100 euros in 1 month. So they live on what they sell. They live on the tips, just to make them a little think about it." So I also went to the salesman and I said, "Do you know that some people really save a lot of months or years
Right, to
for
make
a
the
holiday
trips.
over here?"
Hmm.
But now I realize I was judging both. Oh my
Now
God.
you were in the middle.
I was in the middle, and now we were listening to you. I was thinking, oh my God, Iris, now you really judge both of them.
Mm. But that's good.
But
I mean, sitting in the middle means that we are objective. We can see both sides. You know,
yeah,
we yeah, that's how you have to be. That's judgment should only come that way. It should only come when it's objective like that.
okay, then I feel better now.
Yeah.
But it was really interesting to see that the people they always see it from their point of view.
Right.
They never try to see it from the other point of view. And I think even I heard the tourists talking to the next tourist about it. And I hope it went like a little further than that.
Well, I
Okay.
think it helps coming from a fellow tourist. I mean, you were both in Kemet, and they probably knew you're not from there. So being able
Yeah.
to hear it from you, they may listen a little more, you
Yeah.
know, coming from that side. And I have had that conversation many times with people who are selling things. And I often will say, it costs a lot of money just to come to the country. And sometimes when people come, they have a very tight budget. They don't have extra money. But the thing is, in a lot of countries like that, people they don't even understand that language because it's
Mm.
belief. If you are not living in this place, you are living in a place, it's like heaven. You are living in a place that's like heaven. There is so much money. So you can never tell me you don't have the money. It's impossible that you
Yeah.
could not have it because your situation is better than mine. And on both sides of that, it's narcissism because you're
Yeah.
you're only seeing yourself. Whether you're the person who is poor and needs more, or you're the person who is wealthy or rich, and doesn't either way, there's narcissism involved.
Mm. Yeah, that's true. Thank you for the space, Chichi. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Iris. Thank you for dialing in. All right.
Thank you.
Cool. Peace. All right, Raheem.
Peace, all. How are you
Peace,
guys
brother.
doing today? It's actually great that you brought up sales because I actually got a sales job on the weekend and I started no last week and I started it this week. And
What are you
yesterday
selling?
was we're trying to sell we're trying to get donations for
Oh, you ain't getting none of
hospitals.
that. It's not
Bro,
gonna happen.
I'm telling you, yesterday I was walking around and I said, bro, this is not for me. Bro. And I left and I was being a little girl. Like I thought I was being weird, but I said, nah, bro, I can't get nothing out of these people. They don't want to, it's a bunch of old people. They don't want to sell nothing. And the guys, I just asked, just be nice. And I'm like, bro, I cannot do it. But at least I'm not crazy. I thought I was crazy, bro.
Nah, yeah, sales jobs. They only really work when you have something that is already selling itself, and people don't want to, especially now in this climate. Everybody's losing their jobs, so that means they're losing. Well, you're in Canada, so it's different. So you still have your health benefits and everything. So I get, yeah, your context is a little different, but nah, you ain't gonna sound none of that.
Yeah, that's kind of actually I wanted to build on judging because honestly, that was one of the things that I'm going through right now. Like you said, when you're trying to make make a change in your life, you have to like through it and make and separate things. And I guess now I know not to feel down on myself because I was kind of feeling down and saying like, okay, I gotta find something else to do. I can't sit around and waste time. And I did budget for this week to be like an in between week where I'm not really doing anything and I'll just be able to find what I gotta find. But I
Are
do
you
get
on a
burnt
job
out.
now? Because it sounds like you're on the side of a road, man, and people splashing you with water. Like,
No, I went for a bike ride actually. I tried to take my
oh,
kids in the
okay,
morning, so I am
all
I
right.
actually I pulled over to speak real
Your
quick.
cars sound close.
Yeah, I'm actually on an industry street where a bunch of warehouses at the
Okay, I
moment.
got you.
Yeah, but
Red
thank you
light
though.
district. Absolutely, man.
Um,
Absolutely. Yeah, man. Yeah, there are so many different angles to approach this idea of judgment, when but we're constantly judging, and you should always judge. That's the thing. And like I said, even in the same book that people will try to pull from and say, thou shalt not judge. No, it doesn't even say thou shalt not judge, first of all, but no, it tells you all these different ways to judge. It's saying that you have to judge. You're supposed to judge because if not, you'll fall into all forms of stupidity when you just go with the social flow. Yeah, it's very similar to we look at Genesis, right? We look at this. We look at the experience of Adoma, or Adam and Eve, or Adoma and Hawa, right? Very similar there. They gained the ability to judge through the consumption of the fruit. Now we know, of course, that introduced certain elements into the world, but now it's like Iris was talking about when I mentioned the renewing of your mind, which is Romans 12:2. Do not conform to the patterns of the world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you'll be able to test and prove what Yah's will is, His good and pleasing and perfect will, right? So being able to have that mind, and that's what the serpent and the tree was doing. Whether however we look at it, let me just put it that way. However we choose to look at it, you know, um, the serpent was saying, you have no clue. Like, it's like you have no clue where you're at, do you? It's like you watch the TV series Lost. J.J. Abrams TV series. It's old, obviously now, but there would always be these people they were stranded on that island, and there would always be people who would come in and they would look at the people there like, you don't even know where you are, do you? And us as the watchers, we're like, okay, we don't know, because through the whole series, they never even told you at the end of the series. We finally figured out, okay, these people all died in a plane crash, and they were in some sort of like, limbo state. But are they dead? Where are they? You don't know where you are, you know. And that's kind of how the serpent was in the garden. The serpent's looking at him like, you have no clue what's going on with you right now, do you? You don't even know. You don't know who these people are. You don't even know what's going on. Basically, you don't even have the ability to judge properly what your situation is, because you're only looking at things from one angle. you know so that temptation, which of course we have come to condemn, through our religious socialization. It's you have to, well, I don't want to say you have to, but I would suggest you learn to look at things, not just as the offended or not just as the sinner, but look at things from a higher perspective, because ultimately it's just like when you look at Buddhism, or you read the works of Confucius. One thing that you'll know, even a lot of the with the Hindus, there's not a lot of talk about God. Because we're not going to remove accountability from ourselves to personally develop. And that's what the serpent was doing in the garden. He was like, look, you have no clue where you're at. You're a robot. And here's the deeper thing, because it says it right in the book. there's no one to till the ground. Let us make man to till the ground. So that's the physical body of man was made at that point. So you literally were put here to work. That's why you feel so uncomfortable when you're not working. That's why you will win $50 million in the lottery and you will go back to work Monday dawning because you want something to do. And there's so many things in the world to do, but it's ingrained in you to constantly work. And then when you start to break free of that social spiritual paradigm that's literally been encoded inside of your DNA from overlords, it becomes a very uncomfortable thing, and you start thinking about the judgment that will come as a result. Because here's a little secret, right? There's a part of that story that people make up stuff. I mean, I guess you all are used to me saying things that at this point it's just like, what do you say? You know, so I don't feel like I have to use disclaimers anymore, you know. And even still, I don't, you know, whatever, take it how you take it, you know. But if you look at that story in Genesis 3, right, and this is really pretty much the whole the part of the falling, right? And there's a part where, you know, Yahweh says to Adoma, where are you? And Adoma replies and says, I heard your voice in the garden and I was afraid because I was naked and I hid myself. And then Yahweh says, who told you were naked? Have you eaten from the tree of which I commanded that you should not eat? You know, so that whole phrase right there was so deep, not just because of what the preacher tells you why it was deep. You know, the preacher will say a lot of things. Yeah, you know, when we in sin, we hide ourselves. We try to hide ourselves behind the bushes because we thinking that the bushes are going to cover our sin without realizing that God sees everything. Yeah. That's true. That's all true. But again, you always have to look at context. And once you realize, again, these Israelites were in captivity. You know, when these, because there was only a few of them left at this point, when they were bringing these stories of Moses, and these stories came after that. You see, so they were grabbing from these old Sumerian myths, and there was a lot of science put in there. If you tell me we're made to work, I'm made to till the land. Now, and then I'm reading in other stories, I'm reading in the Enuma Elish, how we were put in areas like, which are modern day Iraq, and South Africa, and we were mining gold and minerals for these overlords. That's like tilling the land, right? So I'm getting these minerals out of the ground, but I'm allowed to eat the fruit from the tree. And then this other deity comes along, and you call it a serpent, right? But some would call it Inky, and says, man, y'all don't even know what the heck you are. It's like talking to a clone, and the clone thinks it's a real human, and you're like, you really think you're human? And then you take a back panel off the back of its head or off its chest plate, and you see all the circuitry inside. It's like, so this thing that I called a god is not necessarily a god. It doesn't mean that there's not a divine spirit that exists within the cosmos and the universe. It doesn't. I'm not saying that, but some things that we call gods are not gods. They're just beyond us. It's like, again, like the cargo cults. Just because the plane lands and then it takes off doesn't mean it's a god. So now these natives see this looking from the bushes, and they worship these World War I and World War II soldiers who landed on these islands, these remote islands, not realizing these are just men in planes. But they build whole idols to them. Things fall from the sky, from the planes, parts from the plane, and they consider them to be divine objects that's falling from the heavens. And in ancient times, the Sumerians called the heavens were just the asteroid belt. That was the heavens. But the point I'm saying is that the key in that line is when he said, I knew I was naked, so I hid. Because you got to look at the context of where the story emerged from. In older times, especially primarily ancient Kemet, which is interesting because Iris just said she just vacationed there. The only ones who walked around nude were children and servants, and in particular slaves. So that was one of the ways that you identified a slave, was the fact that, and especially a male slaves were always bare chested. So, and you could look that up right now and look at images of ancient Kemet, look at images on the reliefs of the walls, and you'll always find, especially the male servants, are always drawn with very minimal clothes, sometimes no clothes. You just see like a waist belt or, waist beads, excuse me, and no shirt. And the same thing, for the children, they're always naked because you were considered to be the same sort of property as a slave. You see? So you have to be able to read it in context to understand what's happening. So when he said, I heard your voice in the garden and I was afraid because I was naked, they realized in that moment, wait, oh, we're slaves. That was the realization that they came to in that moment. We are freaking slaves. We're sitting here thinking we're in this, because we call this place paradise. We call it paradise, but it wasn't Eden, which was two different words actually, was a base. It wasn't a it was a base of operations. So that's why they were put in the garden in the east. The whole place wasn't a garden. It was the Garden of Eden, or the Ga of Eden. So once they came to the realization, we're freaking slaves. So they ain't like, all right, well, you gotta get out then. Go on with the rest of the slave. And we were trying to keep you from the realization of understanding what you are, because there's certain things that are encoded into your DNA. Now you know why you work all the time, because you were encoded to be a slave by an overlord. You see, you were encoded to be that. And because that overlord had deeper and higher technology than you did, you immediately referred to it as your God. But there was a distinction between Elohim, Yahuwah, and the serpent. Now, who's who? I'm not going to get into that on this because we're really talking about judgment. But in that moment, we had the ability now, or man, based upon the mythology, had the ability now to make a judgment, and of course there was a feeling of now this death is inevitable. Like he said, you eat this, you're going to die. Okay. Because you're not going to have access to immortality or the tree of life. We're not going to let you eat from that tree now. So there's certain laws that were given, and sometimes, unfortunately, we start with the mystical explanations of law instead of looking at the concrete, and more literal aspects of the law, or just and looking at the concrete means that we have to look at the context. You have to look at the context. Why was nakedness a thing? And of course, in context, you'll take it to the Catholic Church. Oh, because it's a shame to be naked. You got to put your clothes on. No, that doesn't really make a lot of sense. That doesn't make too much sense. It's a shame to be naked. I mean, how was I created? And many people will make up many different things. But again, I will urge you, feel free to jump in. I'm riffing at this point. So, many people will make up a lot of different ideas and concepts around that. But that's the fellowship of darkness that I spoke about earlier, where you are now belying yourself. You see, you could read these stories and like, man, this kind of doesn't make sense. It's contrary, it's impractical. I feel like I'm having a conversation with the dark, and like sometimes when you're trying to establish a relationship with someone who doesn't really like you, and you're constantly pulling teeth. They're never really coming truthful with you, and you're trying to fellowship with the dark, and you can't really be affectionate with a mystery. But some people are generally committed to the dark, and then some people are generally committed to truth. Those who are generally committed to truth and universal and omnipresent truth, we call judges. Those are the judges, where they have the ability to sift. Again, remember the word judge, krino, in the Greek means to sift. So they're sifting to find the omnipresent truth because they recognize that truth exists in everything. You see, which again takes you back to Confucius understandings, takes you back to Hindu understandings, and a lot of those understandings are a lot older than what you might read. You know, when you get into the Indus Kush mythologies that come forth, you know, those came, and then you had your Mithras, then you had your Dionysus, and all of these things, you know, but those came primarily before some of the things you read. And at some point, you know, the beauty of all of this is that you can see the omnipresent truth, not necessarily tie yourself down like a robot to one book. That's silly, especially when a book tells you that there's other books. That's you know, that's a part of the judgment. Study to show thyself approved. But the book tells you about other prophecies. The book tells you about other testaments. You know, the testament of Lamech, right? Lamech. Where's that book? It's somewhere. It's floating out there somewhere. Why is it that there are certain books that you can get on the internet but you can't buy in person? You can't seem to find anywhere in person, but you can only get them on the net or the Nut. You remember who Nut was, right? The night sky who held all the stars in suspension. You know, some books you can get on the net. You try to find them anywhere else, you can't. If you want a physical copy, you just have to print out a PDF that you download. You see, so there's kind of a understanding of divine word and divine law and divine light and how we're gathering it in these times. You know, and to just assume that everything is coming from one place, that requires a lot of belief. That requires a lot of belief because it's so impractical. You know, in that sense, it's so impractical. You know, but when you're moving with without that weakness of mind and without that hardened sort of confirmation of ego, you know, then you're able to see works of darkness and how those are maintained, and you're able to see the grace of light. You know, because it is a grace. Like, wow, you're gonna let me know this. You're gonna share this with me. Thank you. It's, you know, that's a grace, if you will, rather than being stuck in the utter unfruitfulness of darkness. Like I said, where there is no fruit, there is no gaining of ground. There's no progress. There's only shame and guilt. All right. So, yes, we should judge. Okay, anybody coming in late? Yes, we should judge. We are commissioned and required to judge. Go ahead, Brother Cruz. I see you.
Yeah, man, that's a love. That's a love. I know. I think for just based on one of the points that were brought up in this dialogue, you know, before coming into Anu and being introduced to the 14 keys, you know, either I guess you could say a pushback towards the word judgment, just like I did consequence. But in studying the 14 keys, we get to see that they're, you know, the illusion that we give ourselves deludes or dilutes rather what the verbiage actually is indicating. I remember in just a couple of things. I remember when you gave us the series, the segment series, Libra Rising, when you spoke about the scales. You know, judgment can also be an advancement. You know, a lot of us would have watched competitions, and sometimes for one to advance, they must be judged. So we look at ourselves in the community. Judgment has to be passed to see how much we can actually take as far as responsibilities and consequences themselves that come as a result of judgment. Those doesn't necessarily have to elude anything that can be hampering, if you may. I don't want these terms good, bad, good, or relative, although, but in this case, I'm referring to the consequence that says that you have more responsibilities, you have more benefits that come as a result of these judgments. And then we start to make reference to the concept of law. I remember again talking about 14 keys. There was the lecture that you presented to Black and Bell. And you put yourself to people singing on YouTube, and then you ask the audience regard to the what is their
You're breaking up quite a lot, brother. I don't know if it's just me. It could be my connection. Does anybody else hear him breaking up, or is it just me? If it's just me,
No, you're breaking up a lot still.
oh,
yeah,
you
you know,
breaking up.
No, it's breaking up. Yeah.
yeah, I'm putting myself
Oh, my
back on
bad.
mute. Then I'm gonna just let you write out, Chief, because I think I catch you. Extra ball.
It's cool. Yeah, man, it's cool. I mean, I think we were able to hear some things through the breakup too. I mean, I did. Hopefully, you all did too. You know, we get what we get. You know, we'll all be together soon, or at least us our new people. We have a retreat that we'll be going out to on the 7th, and Abba Cruz will be there, so we'll be able to have these conversations without the interruption of signals, because in most of these places that we do retreats, we can't get phone signals anyway. So you know, you have to
Yeah,
kind of
we won't have to worry about my neighbor's Wi-Fi.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, borrowing the Wi-Fi off the neighbor. You know, they'll be able to finally watch their movies with you going. You know, so yeah, man. So yeah, I'm not gonna belabor the point. You know, yeah, my main thing that I wanted to share with you all was just this concept of judgment, and how people will use that word to run away from what they're supposed to really be looking at. And those of us who are carriers of the light, you know, or let me just say it that way. Um, those of us who carry the light and who are being charged to carry, yeah, let me just say it. You know, again, that's part of judgment. Light carriers get the worst sort of connotations. You know, those who carry the light. Lucifer means to ferry the light. Illuminati means those who are illuminated. You know what I mean? So it's just like, when I said it, I was like, you gotta be careful when you say certain things. But it's only because of people's ignorance and not really understanding necessarily what these terms really mean, and how we're scared out of those terms. You know, we're scared away from those terms, and we're driven deeper into ignorance. You know, you look at terms like again, the Pentateuch. You know, those first five books, right? Um, we have that. Oh, Ryan, you got cut off. You're in there. Oh, maybe he dropped out. Oh no, that's Aquia. Um, yeah. Whenever you come in, Aquia, just unmute and don't tell me you hit it by accident, because that's what y'all like to do. Um, come on, Aquia, we hear you. Come with it.
Is it works? Okay.
Yeah, it works. I'm on the air, y'all. Yeah, you're on the air.
Yeah, Chief. Peace. Peace, everyone. Peace, Chief. Give thanks for the space. I just wanted to, I appreciate the definition that you gave. About the word crano. To sift through or to sort through things, and to get to the truth. And it reminded me of a conversation that I had with someone, and we were just talking about some issues that she was going through, and we were, I guess you could say, sifting through. But uh, then she said to me, well, you can't judge me because you don't know my story, which really, shut down, moving forward with her own personal accountability, and getting some resolve. But I also recognized, just even within myself, how I say within my own self, like, well, you don't know the story, or I may be, something may be brought to my attention within, you know, um, I'll say to myself, well, that you don't know the story, or that's not, the fullness of it. And then, just blocking, my own self from that accountability, and actually sifting through. But I just wanted to, just touch on that definition and getting a better understanding of what judgment was, and just thankful for the clarity. So that's it. Give thanks.
Absolutely. Yeah, that was an excellent ad, because you know you're offering up some of the common phrases that we all encounter, and sometimes when you're trying to help someone, it's difficult when you don't have the language. And sometimes you have to lay out those those reactive program responses, like write them out, and then say, okay, if they say this, what do I say? If they say this, what do I say? If they say this, what do I say? So it's good when those things sort of come out. And again, if I'm judging by the spirit, I don't need to know your story, because I'm judging with the hope with the help of the Holy Mother. I don't have to read, and let's be honest, you ain't got to read the whole book to know the story. Because there's nothing new under the sun, and many of us are repeating human dramas and human mythologies. I can't tell you how many people who come into Anu or come around Anu and say, Chief, I swear I've known you all my life. You're so familiar to me. I don't know. You're just so familiar. I'm familiar because you've met me before. You know, we all come from a certain spiritual body, and a lot of times we'll meet people in the past, and what we were supposed to have with that person, maybe we didn't have the energy to have at the time. So the spiral of the universe brings that person back again. You know, so you get another guy, and that spirit or that fabric, whatever created me. There's more of it. There's more of that substance, more of that matter, more of that color, that shade, and they just paint more pieces of clay with that shade, and you can encounter it more than once, which is showing you, okay, let me behave or respond differently this time. You know, it's like, and I can't speak for it as you know, for a woman, but I know, like, as a man, you know, you may have, quote unquote, that one that got away, you know, or you might have been in a space where maybe, you know, you saw someone that you really wanted to approach and speak to, and you went, oh, man, I could taste my mouth. I know my breath stink. Nah, I ain't gonna say nothing. No, you know, or I'm gonna have to go up there and cover my mouth. You know, really show her how New York I am, and cover my mouth while I'm talking and stuff like that. You know, and you just let it pass. And meanwhile, her breath might have stunk too. Might have been all right. You know, and then a year or two later, you see someone, you think it's her. You know, it's someone different though, but the universe is giving you another opportunity by bringing the interest of that archetype to you again. You know, because so it's the same thing with these things that people say, well, you don't know me, you don't know my story. You're not that special. A lot of us share a common human drama. You're not that special. I promise you. You know, this is why your problems reflect the same problem. We all got the same problems: insecurity, shame, guilt, regret. You know, like everyone has the same thing. Bad relationship with their family. You know, you know, we could just go on failed relationships, because we're all moving with the same mentality. You know, and there's clues that are left to show that, oh, this person fell into that particular trap. That's why we're able to read these ancient books and gain so much wisdom, because the human psychology has not really changed. When you read the Enuma Elish, you read stories about revenge. You read stories about community. You know, the death of Tiamat. Tiamat was an innocent dragon. Tiamat wasn't doing anything wrong, but the Tiamat's body was used to create the planet, basically. You know, you read all these different stories, like, man, same stuff that goes on today. You know, Ima Sequoia, I see you in there. All
Peace,
right, there we go. Uh-huh.
peace, chief, peace, everyone. Yeah. Give thanks for this topic. What stood out for me was the aspect when you said being committed to truth, and those people are the judges. And I just think about like how the constant pulling away of the ego, is necessary um because like you said, like you are opening yourself up to be judged as well. So if you it's like if you dishing it out, you got to be able to take it as well. And I think about like the humility, and the responsibility, like, okay, if I'm committed to truth and I'm going to be given truth and I'm going to be given all these judgments, I have to be humble and receptive as well to be able to hear that's the same in return. So yeah, I just wanted to share that. And I do think about like all the different like fears of like how others respond to hearing truth, or how like sometimes when you say truth, you hear the uncomfortability of like the silence of the room, or, to just kind of like, you just scratch your head like awkward. So like all of these different things that come along with like choosing to like, okay, I'm going to stand on truth and be that person that's speaking truth. There's all these other little things that come along with it. Um, so the constant like bravery and humility, and making sure that your ego is in check. Those are the things that come to mind for me. So give thanks.
For sure. Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, sometimes that is a challenge. You know, you're speaking truth, and I don't know, but that's when you hmm, don't be concerned about the effect. If you're flowing with spirit, just flow with spirit, because people are going to judge based on different things. And sometimes we judge in the same way because we're looking at outward. We may say something that we know is truthful, everybody gets quiet. but you don't really know why they got quiet. You know what I mean? Like they could be convicted, they could be praying, they could, you might have triggered something from their childhood, and they're flowing through it. They could be upset. They could be like, well, I'm not going to say anything because I don't want to be called out or convicted. It could be ego. It could be a myriad of things. But the numbers that Elijah Muhammad gave us are always accurate. 5%, 50%, 85%. So there's always going to be that 5% in the room that connects with the truth of what you're saying, and it's going to be the deaf, dumb, and blind. You can't really. It just always is. I've noticed those numbers always work out. So just do what you do, and everything kind of will fall in place. I had a good friend say that to me years ago, and it's such a simple thing. He said, he makes jewelry, and he's really good at it. And we were talking about, I had just finished teaching a music class, and we were talking about music and jewelry and the combination. Around that time, I think Dead Prez had came out with their first project, and he was living with them for a long time. So we were just having music talk and art talks and stuff like that. And he said, "Yeah, man," he was like, "You just got to do what you here to do, and everything else work out." We were talking about money because I was actually paying for his meal at the time. So I listened, and it was simple and profound, but I'm like, but yeah, I'm over here buying your African food. You know what I mean? So, um, but that's what it really is. I mean, there's a truth to it. I love my brother because he's always lived by that. To this day, he lives by that. He's still making his jewelry. And that's the same way with truth, man. When you put it out there, it does whatever it does. They don't like it, they don't like it. They like it, they like it. Who cares? Either way, I don't care if you take it or leave it. Really, honestly, if I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. But if I'm moving with an agenda, then yeah, I'm looking for results. If I'm trying to sell you something, I'm looking for results and things like that. And there is a time for that. I'm not saying that we don't use certain tactics in order to bring our people to the truth, because we do. We use different things, but just like if I'm on Clubhouse and no one, if I'm here and I'm just talking to myself, every time I eventually I'm gonna say, okay, well, this ain't the platform, let me go try something else. So that's the thing. But for the most part, if you bring in truth, you already know that there's an advantage because you're spreading out, you're being fruitful, you're following the commandment. Fruitfulness means to extend the truth outwards. Because when you're moving in belying or belief, you're extending nothing outwards out because you're not creating any fruit. So that's a challenge. Now I saw a question in the chat. I guess that Albert Cruz, you had directed towards me, and you asked, light, truth, will, is it correct to associate all of these? No, absolutely not. I wouldn't connect light, truth, and will together at all. They can work hand in hand, but let's just look at them. Light, right? So what is light? Um, Light can be a lot of different things. Light can be good information. It could be bad information. Well, good and bad, right? So good, like when he said, "I saw the light, and the light was good," right? So good is God. So light could be divine or godly information. Light can be dark light, where it's taking and that's not a problem either. It's taking you further into the void, or into the demonic aspects or the angelic aspects. Light can be artificial. You can be tricked into thinking that something is light that really isn't light. Social media is that. Social media is artificial light because it's you thinking you're getting attention like you would from the sun. Attention. Aten comes from atom. So atom. Remember the deity that masturbated and brought all these other Shu and Tefnut into being through his own masturbation, and unfurled himself out of the abysmal waters of noon into being, right? So you may be thinking you're getting that kind of attention, that atom or the atomic sort of attention, but you're getting likes and hearts and thirstiness or whatever, whatever it is. It's not real light, and then you have the concept of truth, and truth is an omnipresent exactitude of what everything is, right? So what everything is at its core and at its beginning is truth. Not necessarily related to light, because you could have light with no truth inside of it. What today's Sunday? I don't even know what today is. Um,
Yeah, with Sean.
okay, Yom Rishon. Okay, so yeah, so right now, see, that's the thing. I'm out of it. I'm out of the grid. I don't even know what day it is. Nothing. So the thing is, when you today, there are a lot of people sitting up in buildings. And tomorrow in the U.S. is the 4th of July, Independence Day. There are a lot of people. It's going to be fireworks, all kind of lights going off, and it's not true. It's not true. Independent of what? Who was independent? Even today, the lessons that are being shared, the lessons that are being taught, are they necessarily based around truth? Are they based around things that as they are at their core, or are they based around politicized propaganda? And there may be a combination of both. And I'm not trying to condemn anyone and everyone, but I will definitely tell you that today is not the Sabbath. So that alone right there, you already start from the root of a poisonous tree. So light and truth are not necessarily together or synonymous in that sense, because truth can be found in the dark, at the same time. And then I think your other question was about will. Would will be connected? Not necessarily, because again, will is the active force of purpose. So will comes from the heart center. But it's a moving active force. And truth is a moving active force too. So I don't want you to think that truth is static. Truth is dynamic, and truth grows, as we develop, and as we grow, then the universe releases, it trickles. It's like it secretes more truth into our crowns, as we have the capacity to handle the shock of said truth. But will is something that again provides propulsion. It provides an engine for the directions of our purpose, or the directions of our character. And that will comes from the heart. Again, like you've heard me say before, that's why you could watch a game. One team may be completely skilled, but why don't they win? Because their heart's not into it. Or you take someone who has an artistic ability. Like for me, I play all these instruments and stuff like that, and people a lot of times when they see me, they'll say, man, I wish I could do what you do. And you can. There's no scientific or biological reason why you can't do this. I have friends who are visual artists, and I love visual art, me personally, because it's not something I'm very good at. um but I love it. I love it. And I've also said the same thing to myself. If I wanted to do this, I really can do it. So what separates me from a great visual artist, or another person who doesn't play any instruments, and from someone like me who's a multi-instrumentalist? Just the way I think. That's it. Because I have the same hands that you have. You see, I have the same forearms, and the same. My muscularity may be different because of years of playing, and my calluses and things like that. And my coordination may even be a bit different. But certain instruments, you don't need great coordination to play. So what separates me from you? Or I can sing and you can't sing. Well, why is it that I can sing? It's just because of the way I think. That's all. Because I have the same vocal cords that you have. There's nothing special put inside of a singer's throat. But the only thing they have is how they approach life. That's what makes them the singer and you not the singer. For years, my family wanted me to sing, and I would not sing for years. Come on, sing, because I was embarrassed about my voice because it was so deep. And my father my father also had a deep voice. He'd always be like, hey man, you got that beautiful Isaac Hayes thing. Oh man, you got a beautiful, man, nobody want to hear that. Because I'm listening to songs, and the higher you can sing, the better, not the lower. Nobody, that's some old school stuff, pop. Nobody want to hear no deep voice. And then my brother said something to me one day, and he was like, what do you think women really want to hear? Someone who sounds like a man, or someone who sounds like a girl when they sing? And I was like, I guess both, really. So now, because of the way I changed in my thinking, I said, okay, then I'm going to sing in my natural voice, right? And you all have heard it. So the point I'm saying is that that's the will. There's a truth within it, and it's the way that you approach, it's the energy that you approach the truth of what you are, or the truth of what is, that will furthers that light, and it can further it into divine word, the divine word and the divine law and the divine gospel, and into divine grace and divine light, or you could push your will deeper into the dark. Is that synonymous with truth and synonymous with light? Nope, something different. So each of those things, again, answering your question, they can be connected to each other and they can work hand in hand with one another, but they don't necessarily equate to each other. In fact, through natural right, they can be encumbrances to what each other is trying to do, because your will is more connected with your soul. So when you're connecting with the power of the soul uncolored, it drives things forward, but it's boring. It has no flavor. It has no. So my soul may drive me forward and say, you're an artist, and I see a guitar and I see a piano and I see a djembe, and I say, oh, I'm gonna deposit my spirit into these things. And like, because of the way my mind thinks, I like difficult challenges. So my main instrument is bass guitar. Basses are big, they're heavy, the strings are thick. You got to have a different kind of muscularity to play a bass. I also play upright bass, or what we call contrabass, heavy. You got to stand up to hold it. You got to usually use one finger to pluck. You feel like you're dying trying to play that. I love it because the instrument resists me. And then we have to form a level of, I have to submit to that instrument. When my finger is all blistered up and, my forearms hurt from holding these long stretch positions, it's letting me know you're going to have to win my love. But once you win my love, I'll let you deposit your spirit, and I'll speak for you. You see, now that's the way my mind works. But then another person will say, hey man, give me a soprano saxophone. I want something I don't need a lot of breath to play. Give me a travel guitar. It's nice and light, or ukulele, something nice and easy, easier, I should say. I don't want to play a piano. Give me a synthesizer. I don't want all those weighted wood keys and, whatever it is. But it's all in the way you think and approach life, you see, and that's the beauty of it. So your will can be deposited and channeled and mediumed through so many different things based on your worldview. And that worldview expands and changes the more things that you put through it. You see, and it's abundant. Soul is it's an infinite resource. So you could just keep, well, let me try this. Let me try that. Let me try that. You just find all these different things that you can channel it through. And when you do that, you are now emulating the mystical mind of the creator. Because that's all the creator is doing every time one of us comes through. Let me try this combination. Let me try what buck teeth look like with, blonde hair. Let me try what a overbite looks like with knock knees. How's that look? Okay. Let me try a Eskimo, who's a dwarf, but at the same time, has punches as hard as Thanos. Let's see what that'll turn into in their life journey, and just all these different combinations becomes, the diversity of will, if you will, and will kind of exploring and having fun with it. Because like I told you, you can only come to the higher levels of spiritual development when you learn to play with it. It's all play, and as we get older, we forget how to play. That's the problem. The whole book of Revelations, when you read it, you get to the end of it, you realize it's keep it light. That's the main theme. Keep it light. But the way it's preached to you is fire and brimstone, but you got to know how to read it. Keep it light. Have fun with it. Play with it. Like when I spoke to you before, higher ascended individuals typically have vices. Why? Because a vice keeps you grounded. You see, and we go crazy when we see them with their vices. This one was a guru, and I was going to them and I was sending them donations and everything. And then my friend told me, saw him walking down the street smoking a cigarette. Or this and this happened, and this spiritual leader cursed out his whole staff. Or this spiritual leader over there, she has a sugar addiction. I saw her in Dunkin' Donuts just eating crazy munchkin donuts. You know, we look at those vices, and because we've deified that person, like we do a lot of times in Bible literature, we read about the works. Oh, that must have been a god. Yeah, there are many higher ascended beings throughout the galaxies, but it doesn't mean that they are the supreme consciousness of all galaxies, right? But we'll do that even on a humanistic level. And then when someone shows that, no, I'm still grounded to the planet, maybe it's through my humor, maybe it's through this or that, whatever, then we all of a sudden our world falls apart. Yeah, man. So judging, it's okay to judge. Right. So I'm gonna head out, right? I'm gonna close out unless any of you want to share any profound, well, it doesn't have to be profound, it could be simple. If any of you have a simple thought you want to share, or profound, either way I'm cool with it. Feel free. I saw you, Raheem.
I had one last thing I just want to say. I think it was the last two things what you said and Brother Cruz said was actually what I was thinking about, because I had listened to one of your videos about people judging too early
You
and
gotta
not
speak
staring
up
down
and
their
speak
fears.
more clearly, Raheem, because
With my
what are you now? You about 6'4", 6'5" now, Raheem?
6'4".
Yeah, exactly. You're not sounding 6'4" right now, brother. All right, let's try again. Let's start from the top.
All right, okay. So I was watching one of your videos about judging too early and not staring down the eye of your fears and stuff like that. And when he brought up the Libra videos that you spoke about, even and that balance, right? And then the art too as well that you brought up. I like to draw. I love to draw. When I was younger, I used to trace a lot, and then I moved over to pen and just use drawing with pen. And now I find myself closing my eyes and drawing sometimes, like just closing my eyes and then just letting my hand take the page. And even what you literally just said, um, my voice, um, learning how to judge my voice by myself, like not letting anybody else take how I portray myself, or how I view myself, cloud my mind, because I do speak kind of low sometimes, and I gotta fix that. That's even with my art too. I find myself saying, you know what, instead of drawing what people want to see, or what I think people I want to see, because maybe I put something that looks maybe demonic or something like that on my picture or something like that, right? I gotta start judging myself, letting my culture, letting my community judge me for who I look like, what I am, instead of something foreign to me, right? And when you're speaking about like you're a deep voice when you're a kid not wanting to sing and certain stuff like that, it reminded me of myself, like being a kid, and whenever I got a little too loud, people look scared, or being told they look scared, right? So getting older, obviously, people are my size now, right? Maybe they're not my age, but they're still my size, and I feel like it's time for me to I guess spread my wings like the phoenix and rise out of the ashes, and become what I need to become, and start. And that starts with judging correctly and making decisions from those correct decisions. I mean judgments. But yeah, give thanks for the build.
Yeah, man. Listen, you 18 years old. You ain't got no ashes yet. You might get ashy, but you ain't got no ashes. You ain't rose out of no ashes. Your life ain't collapsed yet. You got a little bit more time. All right, don't do yourself in just yet. You know what I mean? It's coming. But this is what I will say. You're 18 years old. You're 6'5". You got a big old wide nose. You got big old wide lips. You're dark as coal. you know you're athletic, you're artistic, and you're articulate. That is not something that we need hidden. You see, now the world will always attack. And what's the world thinking when it says be renewed by the transformed by the renewing of your mind, and not by the patterns of this world? The patterns of this world are satanic thought, because Satan rules this world. So Satan's always going to take, and Satan is your brain. Your brain is always going to take your gift and reverse it on you. You see, it would have you look. I used to look at him. My brothers used to make fun of my lips. You always call me bubble lips and all kind of stuff like that. Used to make fun of my voice and why your legs so big. Why you so big? You just look, because I'm tough. You know what I mean? Then they make fun of my teeth. Oh, your teeth spilling out your mouth. Whatever. All these different things. And then they all became tools later, because again, the satanic energy will always try to strip you first of where your gift is at. I was born with a sore throat. I was born with strep throat. You see? Now, who would have known this child who never spoke, because I didn't speak for a long time, would now create whole careers off of my ability to speak, because that's where the attack came from first. So you want to look at those things, man. Yeah, I'm tall. Yeah, I'm athletic. Yeah, I might get a little rowdy. Yeah, whatever. Are those gifts? And if something is looking to suppress it, why? What does that have the potential to provide to my community? What does that have the potential to provide to the universe? Always start there, because your attack is always going to start with your enemy ain't going to attack something that's not going to hurt it. You know what I mean? So 6'5", dark as freaking ebony. Your whole family, y'all black as mother effer. Y'all dark as ebony. You know what I mean? I know all of them jokers. You know, like I said, articulate, 18, already seeking out the counsel of wiser men, went through your Anu process, your orientation process, coming to the retreat, all of these amazing things that are sculpting you into a magnificent being. Of course the world is going to tell you to hide it. You see? And you have to even be sensitive to that in your relationships. Even in that, who wants you to suppress? There's a sister that I was with for a very long time, and she always says something. She likes to see me, and not on some fruit pop stuff, but she likes to see my plurality in action. Like, she likes to see me with other sisters, and when other sisters are interested and they approach the family and so forth and so on, because she always says like that, it seems like it makes you more of what you are, of who you are. So there's something about that for her, where she recognizes, I'm with this man, he's practicing this tradition, he's doing it in a way that's healthy and sane, and everything is happy. And the more manly stuff I see from him, literally the more it turns her on. So you have to look at, even in your relationships, who wants to suppress the greatness. You might be with a certain person, she said, why are you so loud, or why you got to say it so aggressively, and you find yourself always hunching over. You 6'5", but trying to make yourself look 6'2", or you might do like I did for many years. I used to talk like this, and I used to always talk like this through my neck to try to take some of the bass out that was in my chest. I spoke like this all the way up in through my 20s, instead of in my natural voice, because I noticed when I was speaking my natural voice, I come in the room, everybody would turn around, and then I'd be embarrassed. You see? So no, man, you take all of what you got, you be that bull. We bulls. You be that bull that you're supposed to be, and you charge forward with it. And at the end of the day, you're only 18. You got a whole lot of time to figure out what you wasn't supposed to be doing anyway. You might be like, nah, I should have been quiet. All right, well, hey, you got plenty of time to turn it around. So yeah, man, that's for anyone, who's looking at themselves, or looking at their differences and the diversity that they've been granted with, and not recognizing that as tools to your purpose. Everything you have is a tool for you to fulfill the purpose that the Most High has been putting you. The universe is a very efficient type of organism. There's the only people who make waste to us. But there's something that was designed in you or around you. It was put there for a reason, and you can check those things early in life before you have a lot of experiences, and your experiences begin to shape your personality. You check who that baby is. Why is this baby's feet so damn big? It's no different than how we buy dogs. You look at the paws, man. This pup got some huge paws, so it's gonna be a big dog. So these are the type of things we have to look at each other, acknowledge in each other, and encourage. But it requires what? Judgment. We have to judge each other. You see? So, yeah, man. All right, so we're gonna head out. I see you came in, brother Zach. So peace to you, and to everyone who's in the space. Sister Margie, brother Hamza, brother Darian, sister Naya, brother Ramik. You know, he calls himself YG Gutter, but he said he was going to change it to Ramik, which is his name. He ain't changed it yet. So, Sister Deidre, Sister Precious, Sequoia, Akuya, Abba Cruz, Sister Iris, Aki Rahim, everybody who came in, whatever, came and left, came and stayed, whatever. Peace to you all. All right, and I was filling in on this Yom Rishon, so I know we went all over the place because technically I really didn't have a topic. Right, a couple minutes before the segment, I said judgment. That's what I'm talking about. All right, so next strong, we'll be back with our regularly produced program. All right, and for you, our new folks, I'll be seeing you pretty soon. Next strong, actually at the retreat. So definitely travel safe. I know some of you have already started traveling out to the space, man. So you all just be safe and be wise, especially on these holiday strong ends. This is when people act extra stupid. They get extra drunk. So if you can avoid driving, please try to do that. If you need to get things, get them now while it's nice and early. Try not to be out there with them little kids are shooting, throwing M80s into your car window and stuff like that. So on them holiday days, just please try to stay close to home. Unless you out there throwing M80s in people's car windows and mailboxes, then watch your fingers. All right, everyone, be safe, be well, peace.
Peace.